Hey everybody, welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. Everybody's on their phones because that's what we do. We we just hang out on our phones.
How are you gonna set us up like that? We're literally, you asked us to pull the
Just like
questions up so that we can all read them in a specific order, and then as soon as we start down, you start the podcast, you start recording, and you shame us for it.
oh,
What a
you were talking to me.
what a
Okay, I was
what a
on my phone.
chiefly behave. Oh my god, with this guy. Oh my god,
Wait,
with
were you
this
guys on
guy.
your phones? I didn't even
This is
know
the
until we
this is the
started
first
recording.
one we're gonna have to start completely over because I'm over this podcast already. I am a white girl from 2015, and I am legit over it.
Dang.
I have had it.
Oh, well, you guys know that we put out a story just because we like to do these frequently asked questions because, you know, the reality is nobody listens to the back catalog. So, and that's fine. You know, as tedious as it can be answering the same questions over and over, that's fine because like I said, there's a lot of content that we have and a lot of stuff out there that makes it difficult to sometimes find the answers. So that's why we do these frequently asked questions. So going into it, well, first, please visit us on onesready.com, buy some merch. We've got some flags there, we've got shirts. We also have a tackle eat gear that we sell it on the site. So you don't have to put in a promo code, you don't discount, nothing. You can just go right onto the site. And then, we've got some other folks that we work with as well. Cardomax, Hoist, Trench Coffee, 18 Alpha Fitness. So if you need training plans, hit them up. If you want some on the go energy, then you hit Cardomax up. Then if you want some hydration, you can hit Cardomax or Hoist. Both of them have got great products. And then Trench Coffee, limited time. I don't know if you guys told you, but he's got orders over to Germany. So he's gonna have to put Trench Coffee on a pause, unfortunately, which that sucks. But
Is it because of the
whatever.
Germans? Is that the issue? They won't let them do it? Are we
It,
starting an
it
international incident? Do they hate coffee as well?
actually they have very strict laws on the beans can only be like Jeff was telling me about this,
Oh,
and I'm
no way.
like,
Really? Really?
yeah,
It really is
but
a
like,
German issue? That makes
yeah,
a
it
lot
is.
of sense.
It is a German issue. They
Mm.
they are very strict on their coffee imports and stuff like that.
Shooting
Kid,
on those.
always assume it's a German issue. If you start off that way, you're going to be right most of the time.
Yeah, those guys love their paperwork. There's a very funny story about, those dudes we shoot on the German ranges. We were going to a shooting course, and like the German citizens would run the German ranges, oddly enough. So it was hilarious. So those guys would turn you away for absolutely nothing because they were used to dealing with the army all the time. They were like, oh, so you're shooting on range 14 today. Oh, that's good. Where is your 1797? And you're like, I don't know what that is. Is that an army form or something? They're like, oh, good, you don't have it. We'll see you tomorrow then. Get out. You're like, what? No, dude, we're shooting today. I'm like, not without your papers.
Yeah,
Like, hmm,
dude,
hmm.
that is the one thing. Like if you do kind of have the same mentality we do, it's like, no, actually, we can solve this real
No,
fast.
yeah.
Like
Can you
I'll
just print
just,
it? I'll just fill it
and
out.
that's like, well, you didn't like there are rules,
Yeah.
and you didn't follow them, or you broke them. So
Mhm.
bye bye.
I
And
don't
you're
know
like,
what it is. I don't want to like demean the entire German culture. I think it's just everybody that works at a range, because anybody that's ever worked at a
it's
range that like checks you in or
exactly.
checks you off the range, if they're allowed to give you that stupid bag with your little radio, like if they have that power in their life, it automatically just corrupts them. Like they
Yep.
just are complete dickheads about everything all the time.
Yeah, it does. It's not just the German range meisters. It's
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 every range meister.
every yeah.
Canon.
I mean, I don't even typically go to the shooting range right up here just because they're so strict.
The fuds. Oh yeah.
I
God
mean,
forbid.
The place looks
it's
huge.
it's really nice. It's a really nice range, and they
That
do
is.
night shooting and everything like that. But you can't draw from the holster,
Mm-hmm.
so you can't do any kind of
It's like
like.
everything starts flat on your
Hmm.
bench in front of you, and then like
Yep.
God forbid you actually start shooting fast. Do they still have that like shooting fast rule? Are you allowed to shoot fast, or are you not allowed to shoot fast?
Guys, it should be about
I don't know. They may have
per
changed it now, but
second. If it's more than once per second, like every once in a while,
Exactly.
I'll let it fly. But then,
Yeah.
like if it's continuous, I'm gonna come down there.
A
Have
hundred
a
percent,
quick
dude.
drink.
I got talked to. You know what's funny is that I got I got talked to the first time I lived here. I was at my CCW class, and I didn't want to like take all this time. I thought it was stupid that I had to go actually shoot the course of fire to get my CCW. So the guy was literally just like, "Okay, you got to shoot your I think what is the time like 15 rounds to the A zone out of 20 or something. I
Yeah,
can't
it's
remember.
something like that.
It's like 15 rounds. I think it's like 15 rounds to the C. So it's
It's
like
not
15.
much.
No, it's not. It's ridiculous. So I was like, what does it have to be? And he was like,
You got to
whatever. And I
handle
was just
it.
like, oh, okay. I just picked up my gun. I was like, I just ripped off like per second, like one per second. As soon as I settled back on, I wasn't like burning it down, but I like let it go until my magazine was done, hit all the rounds, and like turned around and like my instructor was there, but the range guy was there too. And I was like, oh, hey, what's up?
Just-
He was like, dude, you can't do that. I was like, what do you mean you can't do that? He was like, we don't allow rapid fire doubles here.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah,
like, none of that was a double. I just shot a magazine at a pretty normal pace. Like I'm not even a fucking high level shooter. I'm like a mid shooter at best comparatively. Like if you put me up against a good competition, a mid range competition shooter smokes the
a
dog
Culpepper.
shit out of me. Oh God,
Oh,
Chris
geez.
Culpepper's not mid range. That guy's a
No, I know.
fucking
That's what I'm saying. Like he's a
Jesus Christ.
savage.
Chris Culpepper's wife outshoots me. Like
Yeah,
Chris Culpepper's wife is a better shooter than I'm probably
than most
70%
people.
of the operators in the team room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but it was funny because he's like, you can't do that. I was like, bro, I am a fucking average guy. That was not fast at all. But yeah, no, you're
Yeah,
right. That
they
range up
couldn't
there
do
is
the
nice.
El Prez. El Prez would blow their mind.
Absolutely not. The second that you start going through a reload and
Yeah.
then getting back on, oh, you would lose your mind. Oh God, the FUDs at that range would lose
Yeah.
they'd come over with their 1911 and they'd be like, hey there, brother.
Hey, high speed.
Hey there, high speed. I know you got this tactical Tupperware we call a Glock. I don't know why y'all need that red dot. Don't know what happens when you don't have batteries. Shut the fuck up. Oh my God. Do you still communicate via xylophone, you idiot? Xylophone.
Anyway,
That'd be funny.
so going back to what we're actually going to talk about in terms of frequently asked questions. Um, so we put out a story. You guys know, I think we got around, I don't know, 10, 15 questions, something
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
So we'll just, like, we haven't even perused these yet. So I'll just start at the very top. And the question was from Alex J. Wills.
This is my favorite part about frequently asked question episodes is watching us struggle to come up with these dumb screen names that
Yeah.
we always just like. I don't know how to pronounce this. All right, so Alex J. Wills, that's an easy one. Thanks for starting us off.
Yeah. Is being twice passed over for rank a non-starter for guard, reserve, special war candidates. Now, I this is a weird kind of the way I see this is a weird kind of question. So guard and reserve, I don't know about reserve, but I know guard is not about whether you make rank or get passed over. It is more of a, is the position available? Is the billet and the rank vacant? If so, then if you get hired, you can move right into it. So I guess I don't see that as being a passover kind of thing. But honestly, even if you're active duty or guard and you get passed over for rank, we don't care.
Good.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like a misnomer too. Like we don't pass anybody over for rank.
Right.
You either make rank. Like if you're an enlisted person, you either pass the test and you score high enough to get promoted, or you don't. It's not like you passed you over. Even, I mean, unless you're talking about you have 2 EPBs in a row that your commander's like don't promote or
Right.
not, or like not ready. You know, unless you have something like that on your EPB, like the promotion rates in the Air Force are going to go way down. Like there is going to be a period for like 5 years probably where, and I just made that number up. I don't know if it's going to be 5 years, but there's going to be a period where it's going to be much harder to promote, especially at that E5, E6, E7 rank. So, you know, not making it a time or two, not being ready to, you know, not making staff your first, you know, promotion, not making tech your first, you know, look at promotion. That's really, really not a big deal. And it's become less and less of a big deal as more and more people have like 3 or 4 cycles to make it. Even when promotion rates were pretty good, I think when I made E6, they were pretty good. They weren't great. It wasn't like 50% or anything. I want to say it was like 18% or 20% or something. I mean, it took me, I think, 3 times at tech to make it, 3 or 4 cycles at tech to make it. So it just is what it is. You're not getting passed over. You know,
Yeah.
you're just not making rank. So I've never been a part of a board that has evaluated a packet that looked at that ever looked at somebody and be like, oh man, this, you know, why is this guy in for 7 years and he's only an E4? You know, how many times did it take him to make staff? I've never been a part of a board that looked like that, Trent. I don't know if you have.
No, for like if you're like retraining into special warfare, it's typically a good thing because the
Right.
more rank you get, the less interested we are in you.
Yeah, and we're going to hit that. There's another question further down where we're going to hit that whole reason about, cross trainees and rank and whatever else to explain it clearly. But yeah, I can't imagine that would be held against you in a spec war, as a spec war candidate, especially for guard and reserve. Like, you're going, I don't even know if you're already in the guard and reserve. It's kind of hard to answer this question. If you're in the guard and reserve right now and you're cross training to go, like, you're going to apply to be a special warfare airman at a guard or a reserve base, it doesn't matter at all. You're just going to submit your packet. But if you're active duty and you're going guard and reserve, that matters, even less. It's sort of confusing.
The only time I see it mattering, and this is not for a cross training board, so Trent definitely has better data than I do on this. But whenever we get somebody whose UC is been in for, you know, 15, 16, 17 years and they're still a staff sergeant, you're like, all right,
Well,
there's something here
sometimes
that's
it's their
going on.
second go at E5.
Yeah.
Sometimes staff sergeant was so nice they made it twice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had a couple friends like that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the good question, to stay on kind of like this arena would be, what are some non-starters? So he's saying, hey, I'm assuming Alex is a dude, but I'm not looking. I don't care. Hi, Alex. Thanks for writing in. What are some non-starters? Because we always try to, put those out. People are like, oh, if I do this, if I have a juvie record, can I still join CCT? Like, what are some non-starters for SW candidates?
Well, I mean,
Over to Trent.
these guys, you're going to get filtered before you even get to the functional managers. Like, you have to go through, like, there's a list of requirements. You can find this on MyFSS and all these other places where you have to submit your paperwork. Obviously you can't be in like criminal trouble, all these other things, but it's just like
financial trouble, anything that
yeah,
put your security clearance in jeopardy. And usually that's financial trouble. They look at like lots of debt.
No, but I wouldn't view it that way. Like, non-starters, like, we're typically looking for the starters. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not looking for reasons to not bring folks on board. I'm looking for reasons to bring them on board. Like, I'm going to look at their PT test. I'm going to look at their EPRs. And I don't necessarily care if you're like the best performer ever, but you can't be the worst performer.
Right.
I'm call your supervisor, and when they're like, oh, all they talk about is special warfare, they act like they're too good for this job. I'm like, well then it's a
wow. Yeah.
Jeez. I mean, so some of the simple things though are, nobody cares about you more than yourself, right? So you make sure that your package is squared away. And I'm talking, as silly as it may seem, grammatical errors,
Hey,
spelling errors.
there's a question. There's a question on how to put the best packet together. So we'll talk about that at the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's actually a whole question on like how
nice.
do I make my
Okay.
packet the best? It's just further down on the sheet. So we'll save that great input for later. Peaches.
I wouldn't say it's great input, but
it's
it's
great
input. It's
yeah.
input.
What other non-starters would you have? Like, if King for a day and you're the functional manager and you get to let people in the pipeline, as you look at things, what are some red flags for you where you're like, hey man, I don't even know if this person's going to be able to make it?
Any kind of downgrades on their EPBs or their enlisted performance briefs. If I get an email or a phone call from their respective supervisor or chief or somebody like that, because that you better believe that happens.
Oh, that happens.
Because it's a small world, and not just small within aspect war, but I'm talking about just in the Air Force in general.
The Air Force is super small. The
And guess
DoD
what?
really is not that big. Like,
No.
it's really not that hard. We make the joke where somebody will come up to me like, hey, you're in the military. That's cool. Do you know my son John? He's in Fort Sill. He's in the Army. Like, no, haven't had the chance to meet him, bud.
Yeah.
But we joke about stuff like that, but it really ain't that big, dude. Like, somebody asked me about the Army and they say some weird Army stuff. I can just call my brother and be like, hey man, do you know this Army thing? And they'll be like, oh yeah, no, I know somebody there. Or I'm aware of that. Or you really are pretty close to it. The Air Force is, the world is a small place in general. When you really think about it. And then the military and the Air Force is super small as well.
And you can look people up.
Like, oh yeah.
Because people out there, it's called what does the GAL stand for? Global Access List or something like that?
Yeah.
So it's an email.
How did you pull, of all the acronyms that you have not been able to pull out of your head for this entire podcast?
I don't know if
you come up with the GAL.
I don't know if it's access or not.
I think it is the global address list.
There you go. Address. Yeah.
Okay, good. You stayed very on brand by fucking that one up.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can look, we got an email the other day from somebody in the Space Force that looked me up on the global and boom, shot us an email. So, so we can vet people like that. And we can also, if we get, the PJs do it. I got to assume SR has a list of
Oh
who's
yeah,
graduated and stuff like that. Cause I know CCT does.
like
So
a career field wide list. Yeah.
yeah, because
When
so
it's like
people
3 per
outside,
year, it's pretty easy. It's like, yeah, it does.
three, three little sections. That's it. So people will reach out and go like, "Hey, man, I'm putting this guy through just because he is a good dude. He did have some problems, 3 years
Mhm.
ago, but he's really turned it around, kind of thing." So yeah, we talk. But if somebody reaches out and somebody's not willing to give you some kind of letter of recommendation, somebody's not willing to at least or send an email or make a phone call for you, that kind of tells us something. It doesn't mean that that's a non-starter, like, oh my God, you're not getting in if you don't have that. But it's like, man, somebody didn't want to take the time to at least send a quick note in an email. Like
Mhm.
it's just a little weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's stuff that definitely raises your eyebrows, and I've done the same thing before. I actually, I've had people speaking specifically about Guard and Reserve. The Guard and Reserve vet their candidates really well. It doesn't matter that you're a PJ. I had a guy that went Palace Chase as a young staff sergeant. He ended up going out to the Moffett unit. The guys from Moffett called me. It was actually like way back, and it was funny. That was the first time that Chris Klaffenegger, we've had him on the podcast here. Claff's a good friend of mine. What's up, Chris? But that was the first time I'd ever talked to Chris on the phone. He called me. He's like, "Hey, is this Tech Sergeant Aaron Love?" I was like, "Yeah, what's up, man?" He was like, "Oh, it's so and so." And he was vetting the dude that was applying at the unit. He was
Mhm.
like, "Hey, your signature block is on a couple of his EPRs. I know you was your supervisor. Like, I want to talk about whatever. His interview went great, and short story, spoiler alert, the guy has crushed it at Moffett ever since. He's a great hire, great pickup, awesome dude." But yeah, the 100% people will call, and it's not just the career field. I've gotten super duper random emails from folks, or I've done the same thing you did, Peaches. I look at a set of information. I'm like, man, let me look up this guy's signature block. I'm just going to hit him on Teams real quick and just ask a
Mhm.
question. Like, go and figure it out. His Teams bubble is green. Let me just talk to this guy real quick. God, I'm so glad I deleted Teams off my phone the other day because I hate Teams, and I'll tell you what, it made me so happy. I was cleaning up my apps on my phone, and for whatever reason, the two apps that made me the happiest to delete was Wicker and Teams. Wicker was for whatever reason, AFSOC spent millions of dollars to use this dumb secure messaging app that we had to use. It was highly clunky. It was the dumbest. And during COVID, Wicker became like the I don't even know
It's so stupid.
the avatar for everything that was wrong. It was like you would have to have these fucking meetings, and your people would get pissed off because people would have like funny avatars for like their little face, but but then you were using it for official shit. So you'd be at like a wing commander's call, and somebody with like a Yeti and a thong would like start talking, and it would just come up on the screen, and they'd be like, "Yeah, you might want to consider changing your avatar to make it more professional." But like, bitch, we're talking on a video thing from home. Nobody's wearing pants.
And as that went.
I hated
I'm
Wicker.
sorry. You know what just popped into my head was the Army Special Warfare Group change of command
We
issue.
did, man. I'm here to plug my own personal interest. If you guys want to go over and check out the War Room 2024 on YouTube, we took a pretty deep dive into that bad boy with video included. So
Deep dive.
it was a deep dive, bro. The jokes, it went off the rails immediately. Like, I just don't even, if you're not tracking, guys, there was a Zoom meeting that the change of command had the foresight to put out to the entire world. There is an internet celebrity called Billy Bull that frequently jumps in these Zoom things, and he was doing something disgusting. Don't Google it from a government computer. Do it from your personal phone. Use a
Avoid it at
VPN.
all. You don't.
Never do it from the government phone. But I think that's it. Like, yeah, we're gonna vet everybody that comes through Guard Reserve. Is getting passed over for rank? Not really. There's very little non-starters, man. Like, if
Yeah.
you have some criminal stuff, if you've been, you have an Article 15, that's not even a non-starter. That's pretty close to a non-starter. It's pretty close to us being like, hey, probably not. If you've tried it a bunch of times before, like, and I know it sounds like this sucks, but you tried your hand earlier in life, and now you didn't do so well. Your paperwork doesn't look great, you come back again and your paperwork still doesn't look great, you still look like an average dude, that's pretty close to a non-starter. Somebody's going to look at that and go, oh man, I don't know. But man, there's always going to be, like Trent and like Pete just said, there's always going to be room. There's always going to be room to be like, I don't know if this guy or gal is good, maybe they can make it over here. The French Foreign Legion used to take criminals for a reason. They had a rough time earlier in life and they were pretty good about it, when they figured out how to interact and use their skills for good. So
Rough around the edges.
yeah,
All
there
right.
you go.
Or yeah.
Go.
I was
What's
going
that?
to say, but like we will see this too sometimes now that I'm thinking about it and remembering. If like combat control said no to this guy a year ago or whatever, or like 3 months ago, and then you
Right.
resubmit the package, and now like your essay that you sent me is like, I wanted to be SR for my entire life.
No, you didn't.
I can see that like I'll just like lean back in my chair like, hey, do you remember this dude? And they're like, oh yeah. Yeah, I
Right.
remember that
Yeah.
guy. I'm like, oh, okay. Let me just
We all
say
work in the same cubicle, bud. Like, yeah, you're not going to gaslight us on this one.
yeah.
All right. Moving on to Jet Robbins. What tips do you have for avoiding injuries and infections in the pipeline? Well, for injuries, you definitely need to listen to our episodes, plural, with Taylor Starch, since he talks about injuries.
Part 2
Um,
dropping tomorrow. It's 2 hours of Taylor Starch just going madman deep scientist.
the guy needs his own podcast.
He really does. Yeah, he really does.
Yeah.
Someone should help him with that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, we could help him get his own podcast, but it would be literally like it would be like Hannibal Lecter, right? Because that's the only way that you're able to get Taylor. So like you have to wheel him in to the podcast studio and then like make sure the door is locked and then let the Tasmanian devil go and tell him, just on the wall, just like, here's what you're talking about. And then everybody else has to run the tech. Like somebody has to be running sound and somebody has to be following him around with a light because he moves and talks with his hands and all that other stuff. And then when he's done, you got to hit him. You got to tranquilize that guy with like 100 of ketamine
Put him
and
down.
get him back out. It's the only way you
What's
can do
great though is he's because I asked him about it and he's so passionate about it, and I was like, dude, this is amazing, and you've got so much knowledge. He goes, listen, I spent X amount of dollars getting this education, plus I've spent close to, I can't remember the amount of time. He goes, but I've probably trained about 30,000 athletes now, and he goes, and I want to help, and if I instead of people doing exactly what I did and learning from the start and learning all the whole thing, let's skip all that, teach them this now, and then we can progress even farther.
Mhm.
And I'm like, God, man, that comes from such a genuine place
It
of
does.
just upgrading humanity. Like, I love it.
Yep.
So avoiding infections and injuries in the pipeline, well, just there is good hygiene too.
First of all, you dirty, stinky cones. There is a distinct odor. And I feel every time I do this, I feel like Mr. Anderson, or not Mr. Anderson, because that's Neo. I feel like the agent. It's disgusting. The stink of it. Yeah, he's just talking about. I don't know what it is, man, but every once in a while you'll just have like a stinky team, like the stinky cone. Like, hey, let me tell you, you didn't have an easy day yesterday, so you can wear your PT gear again today. Okay, that's never been a thing, cones. That's number one. Number two, you have to wash all of your clothes all the time, and you have to take a shower every single day. Being in the pool does not count as your shower, guys. You gotta take a shower at night and do that stuff. And I know we joke, like we make the joke about stinky students all the time because you're running around, you're sweaty all day. But good hygiene, you're just gonna have to go super, super meticulous on it because stuff is everybody's gonna get sick. There's gonna be a little bug that floats around the dorms, and everybody has some sort of upper respiratory stuff. There's gonna be the occasional MRSA or the occasional outbreak of some sort of contact device or a contact sickness of some sort that you're going to get. Like, you have to be super duper locked in on your hygiene. And that's not just like for infections or whatever, but I mean, that's for foot care, for wound. You're going to have bumps and bruises and scrapes and breaks in your skin everywhere. You're going to be in and out of dirty water. You're going to be rolling around ant hills and having ants bite you because we'd love to do that because it's Texas. There's a million things that can kind of take you down here, right? So, first and foremost, your defense against infection, as always, is proper nutrition, proper hydration, and proper supplementation of the things that you're supposed to have, like vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, these things that you get from a good balanced diet of food. Vitamin D and sunlight are two of those things. Vitamin D, vitamin C, sunlight, and zinc is basically the power pack. If you get yourself to a place, everybody out there, unless they're supplementing vitamin D, they probably don't have enough vitamin D. We saw during COVID that vitamin D, you were 4 times less likely to have a bad infection if you had appropriate levels of vitamin D. But pretty much everybody in the world is vitamin D deficient unless you supplement like all the time. So, and going out in the sun is not enough. You need to supplement a little bit more than that. So, if you get those levels good and your nutrition is good, typically you deal with all sorts of those global infections pretty well. If you got good hygiene, you're washing, you're taking care of your wounds, taking care of your feet, taking care of your nutrition, your hydration, and your sleep, because that's going to be the other thing that kills your immune system. And I know that we're going to make it so that you can't sleep for long periods of time. I got it. That's the point. But, infections and little colds are going to happen. Just setting yourself up to deal with them the best is really the only way that you can lean forward on the infection part of it. Now, for injuries, man, we can go into that. That's a 4-hour podcast with Taylor Sarge. He went over, 45 minutes just on like knee ligaments the other day.
It's unreal.
He's a wild man. Well, and also when it comes to like infections and stuff, like it's a lot of it's on the student, right? Like I get that you want to wear your contacts all the time, but I'm going to keep you up for a long period of time and it's going to be dirty and it's going to be nasty. Are you going to have the extra contacts with you? Or are you going to be able to like clean everything and get them in and out of your eyes and all this other stuff? Like maybe you're just going to have to wear those stupid like gas mask inserts through certain portions of the pipipeline. Like, are you more worried about
BCGs, baby?
Stupid, or are you more worried about making it? Like, you got to make those decisions.
Yep. And also, if you like going back to the infection kind of thing, as soon as you start to think that maybe this, abrasion or whatever it is starting to get infected, because we're putting you through creeks and it's in dirty environments, stuff like that. And, we joke about you not washing yourselves, which is true. But at the same
Wash your
time,
nasty body.
Gums. Yeah, but, we're going to put you in creeks and there's some nasty stuff out there. As soon as you start to see, what should be some kind of innocuous, abrasion or cut, but then it starts to like change and swell or get hot or red, like let an IDMT or whoever the medical folks cadre know. Just be like, hey, check this out. Because it's rather than let it grow and then get worse and then you get removed from training, um, a little bit of antibiotics and then you're good to go, so.
Yep.
I want to wait for the MRSA, get the pump on my body.
Oh my
Pump
God.
the pus out.
Oh my God, dude.
Packing gauze into like just an endless stream of whatever that
Lancet.
little, the small, very thin gauze that you're just
impregnated gauze.
Oh my God,
dude. So I had MRSA. The worst MRSA I ever had. It's actually like I still have a scar from it. It's right there, but it was the absolute worst. And it was right before I was getting ready. It was probably like a month and a half before I was getting ready to go to selection in 2005. I was on my very last TDY. It was Yuma. I felt like I had a spider bite. Like I went to Yuma. We worked. I think I got home on like a Friday. So I got home on Friday night and Saturday morning I woke up and I was just like, oh man, like my arm, it's red. I was like, it kind of looks like I got bit by a spider. You could see like a little blanching kind of in the middle of it. And I was like, I don't know, that kind of like looks weird. So I spent Saturday and Sunday and didn't really think about it. Monday I went in, it got like progressively worse. I was like, oh, it'll probably get worse. And then, it'll probably express some fluid and it'll be better on Monday. So I went in on Monday and my boss as a phys tech he was a PA. So he was a really, really cool dude. It's David Carey. He's an awesome guy. But Lieutenant Colonel Dave Carey, he looked at me and he goes, hey man, what'd you do to your arm? And I was like, oh, I don't know, man. I think I got a spider bite or something, sir. I was like, yeah, I noticed it when I was out in Yuma. I was like, but we were flying and stuff. It didn't really hurt and whatever. He's like, oh, that's cool. Can you do me a favor and go over to the medical clinic right now and get seen? And I was like, what? He was like, Aaron. He's like, do you see how it's getting red and it's going like the inside of your arm and it's starting to track like next to your veins and stuff and starting to like go? And I was like, oh yeah, that's probably bad, huh? He was like, yeah, okay, cool. So go. And I was like, oh, no problem, sir. I got to do some stuff with maintenance. He's like, oh no, I think you misunderstood when the lieutenant colonel ordered you to do something. And I was like, oh, okay. Oh. Sure enough, I get there and they were like, oh yeah, bro. So they had to lance it. So they had to dig a scalpel into my arm to get to the bottom. Because the way this works is like you'll have a pocket of infection and then that pocket of infection will seal itself off. And another pocket of infection. And you have this big pocket of like, think of it like bubbles that are in there that are like almost self-contained. So you have to lance all of those. So they dug into it. They squeezed like 10 cc's of fluid out of my forearm. Like the chick was just like this. She was like, this is going to be gross. And I was like, here we go. And she squeezed my forearm like this, like towards where the thing was. And it like, I could feel a couple of different like pops and moving. And then everything was just like, and it was,
Awesome.
the smell was disgusting. It was cottage cheese and
Boy.
green and gross. It was awful. And then we had to pack that. So she was like, all right, well, that wasn't the worst part. And I was like, awesome. What's next? She was like, well, we're going to have to pack it full of this gauze. It's impregnated gauze, and it's basically got to heal from the inside out. And this is how we do it. And I was like, oh, tight. How much are you going to put in there? She put like 4 feet
Yeah.
of this like very thin, very little. She's just packing it in here. And we had to do that for like, I had to replace that stuff like every second or third day for like 3 weeks. It
It's
was
terrible.
the absolute worst. And then having to sit there and myself, like basically sit there with my elbow on the table and like pack this into my forearm was not fun. But MRSA sucks. So don't get MRSA. That's your cautionary tale.
Yeah. There injuries. The reality though is injuries and infections are going to happen. Hopefully, you're able to avoid them, and the way you can avoid them is by good preparation and fitness preparation, which leads us into the next question from Rowan Egan 17. I'm guessing Egan, but
Yeah.
how should somebody in high school prepare for an ANS? So that's not a loaded question, but there's a lot to that question. And we've
Yeah.
talked about it, especially when we've done ad reads for 18 Out Fitness, which check them out, 18outfitness.com. Use the promo code the number one and ready. And you know, he bases, and I'm gonna oversimplify it here, but he bases his programming for you off of a couple different things, right? So if you're in high school, everything's going to, or even college or whatever, what is the end goal? Like, what do you need to be at? What are you currently at? Like, what's your current fitness? Are you just now getting off the couch and starting to your physical fitness, journey or life or whatever you want to call it? Or are you a prior basketball player, football player, soccer player, whatever, and you already have a background in kind of sports and fitness and stuff like that? And then how much time do you have? Okay, so Rowan, you're in high school. I don't know if that's junior, senior, whatever, but get involved in sport, get involved in some weightlifting, get involved in some cross country, track, soccer, like whatever that is. If you're not already doing that stuff, then get in it. And if you maybe for Christmas or birthday or something like that, maybe you try and get some equipment from a tack leader. You try and get a program, to help do that and get you where you need to go. And even if you don't keep it up, maybe it's just you get in there, you get a couple months, and you get the kind of muscle memory or whatever you want to call it, and learn how to do some of these movements, and then you go off on your own. But the biggest thing is don't do things that you wouldn't do in the pipeline, right? So you're going to need to run, you're going to need to do pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups. You're going to need to swim, so get in the pool. If you want to ruck, then ruck. But you don't doesn't mean that you need to do. And believe me, as somebody who loves this stuff, you don't need to do snatches. You don't
Right.
need to do Olympic weightlifting. I mean, I would squat, I would deadlift, I would probably bench. Like if push-ups are not your greatest and you don't have some foundational muscle to fall back on, then sure, I would do some weightlifting, but I'm not doing powerlifting and stuff like that.
And I'm certainly not doing power. I'm certainly not doing like CrossFit powerlifting. So I'm certainly like 75 muscle snatches for time. There's no point to that workout ever. That's the dumbest workout of all time. You should never do that workout. It does absolutely not. Or like, what's the other? I can't remember the name of the workout too, but it's like 30 clean and jerks for time or something. I don't know. I can't remember.
Grace.
Yeah, Grace. 30 clean and jerks for time. Guess what? There's no point to do that. Just go for a run. Yeah, the physical preparation thing, I would start with, the absolute basic food groups, right? Like we've given you this information, and you can almost answer this question yourself if you've heard us talk about it. What do people have the most problems with, right? Run times are correlated. Faster run times are correlated to people graduating the pipeline more. The faster run time that you have, the better a chance you have to make it through. That's just a statistical data point, right? Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff for causal factors rolled into that, like why are faster runners more likely to make it? Does it have to do with their overall fitness? Does it have to do with that's an indication of how much time that they've trained? Like they're able to get to that level. That's a very high level of training. It takes a lot of time. They're probably disciplined and trained, what have you. Number one, run times are gonna have a direct correlation to passing assessment selection. So that's number one. I would go, okay, well, to be the best that I possibly can be as a candidate, number one, I have to be pretty fast. I have to be a pretty fast runner, right? From there, it's the swim. So from there, I would be like, I don't know, maybe you're not a competitive swimmer, but I'll tell you what, I bet if you walked onto your swim team, that swim coach would be like, yeah, come on, we could use another body. It'd be great. You get some competition reps in there, you get some confidence in the water, it's 2 hours of, and it's just your sport. You don't have to be a swimmer for the rest of your life, but one season of swim team would do you a ton of good, I would imagine. Like probably pretty good for cardio, for swimming, for all that other stuff. Same with cross country. I believe cross country and swimming, swimming is like a winter sport, and then I believe that cross country is a fall sport. So I think
it's a fall sport.
Right. I think you can go right from cross country into swimming. So if you really wanted to like fast track your baseline, that sounds like a pretty good, 6 months of my time in high school is go right from cross country into the swim team.
They're like,
And that's a
yay,
pretty good
both
way.
the teams that get me no social credit in high school.
No social credit. You're getting, listen, I got bad news for you, my friend. You're getting no hose with this. Like, this is not something that people, there's, you're not, the prom proposal for you is going to be pretty cringy, buddy, because you are going to be a cross country and a swim athlete, but it's for a better reason. That's all going to make it up on the back end when you get your beret. You're just going to have to trust me on that one. Like, it's like an IOU for hose. And by the way, I just want to make it clear, hose is gender neutral. Like men's is hose too. Ladies can be pimps too. I think Megan Thee Stallion said that. So you're fine. It's non-gender specific roles. Like you're gonna get them hose on the back end. But yeah, no hose.
Do I need to bleep that out? Or
no,
not?
absolutely not. That's absolutely not. That's totally good, especially comparatively to what we've been letting slide recently. I can say getting hose on the podcast. I think that's
the 90s have entered the chat.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, if you want some fresh Betty snacks, I can tell you what not to do. Be a ski guy. Don't be a cross country guy. All that stuff. And then like third, so the faster run times is going to get you selected more likely than not. So that's just a truism. The swim crushes people. You're not going to have as many options open to you if you're not a good swimmer. And people tell us all the time, they're like, hey man, I really want to be a PJ. I really want to go to dive school. I just can't swim. So I got to pick something else. I want to be a PJ. And unfortunately, maybe I'll get there one day, but for right now, I'm going to have to try something else that's a little, less swim intensive before I go on. So number 2, the swim. And then number 3, we've talked about it a million times. If I was in high school right now and I was an American male, like 15 to 17, I would be Googling every single day, what diet helps me produce testosterone? What daily actions help me produce naturally testosterone? I'm not talking about taking supplements. I'm not talking about taking Tren or Gear or D-Ball or whatever crappy over-the-counter stuff you're getting from GNC. I'm talking about I would make my diet specifically to produce free testosterone in my body. I would understand where my levels are, and then I would foster that and couple that with time on feet. I would just be on my feet, getting ready for those musculoskeletal impacts, because that's a thing that we've talked about all the time on this. Time on feet, time on feet, time on feet. If you're in school, again, you're going to look weird. If there's a class that lets you stand up during class, stand up during class. Get used to no kid, like on the weekends, you're not allowed to sit on the couch and you're not allowed to go to bed and in your bed until it's time to go to sleep. And other than that, you're up and you're moving and you're walking around. Even as dumb as it sounds, like taking your dog for an extra walk, doing extra, you can get any stupid little treadmill. There's a treadmill that's out here. It's like $200. It's ridiculous. It's like 4 feet long and it fits under a desk. It's for nerds that want to use the stand-up desk. I don't do that. You want to be on your phone? Fine, but you got to be on the treadmill. You got to be walking it out, I think those that people overlook these things like, oh, what should I be doing in high school? I got to be doing all these like really crazy things. Not really, man. You look at what trips everybody up. The run, the swim, musculoskeletal injuries. Numbers 1, 2, and 3. Cals is like 4th. Like we're not like failing people out for missing push-ups and sit-ups. Like it's not happening, right? There are some people that can't make it and need some extra help to get there. But, as far as like how we're kicking people out or how we're not selecting people, look at the things and just start building yourself to be like, okay, well, I don't have to worry about those now. Now I'm going to worry about cows, and now I'm going to worry about specific skills, and now I'm going to worry about these specific events. But man, for me, I'd get to be a really good runner. I'd get to be a passable swimmer. And then I would spend time on feet, and I would get as much free testosterone via nutrition into my body as I possibly could to support what's going to happen, because your body is primed right now to just pump that testosterone out and help you get through the pipeline. But this generation, as we know, what is it, 40% less testosterone than
Yeah.
our generation? Yeah.
Jeez.
So
It's not
I'd say
good.
that.
It's not good.
No. And then as an aside, and this is just for shits and gigs, it would be really cool is if you studied a little bit, if you read a little bit, if you went on the Discord and you went to some of the channels and you went to some of the chats that they had, and you learn the history about the career fields, so that when you get into the pipeline, you have a little bit of an idea of what you're doing. That would be pretty cool too. But that's what I
Yep.
would do for high school.
Trent?
Yeah, run. I think we crushed it.
Right.
Yeah. That
But
one maybe beat.
yeah, and well, in my mind, it's you want to make everything easier, right? Like I'm not like a physically strong person, but like if I'm in the pool going from event to event, like I don't want to be smoked when I get there to wherever I'm going, and you're not always like getting out of the pool and walking around there. Like get over there now. So like your freestyle swim needs to be on point. So you're not smoked whenever you get to where you're going. That's the same thing on your feet, right? Like I'm too lazy of a person to want to show up to my next training event smoked. So I'm going to really work on my running and my walking and all this other stuff. Like, and that's how I view these things. I want to be not tired before I start this thing that's going to be difficult for me.
Right. I love hearing Trent talk too, because he'll be like, I'm so lazy. I got really, really efficient at all of these things so that I could put up less energy. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So you crushed yourself for 6 months so that you could be lazy?
So that
Yeah.
when it came time to like my 60% run is good enough to get me wherever I need to go. And that way, when I get there, I'm not like, I'm
Nice.
okay.
It's-
Like
yeah.
I'm
I
not
can
great
get
at
on board with
pull-ups,
that.
but like I still got energy for enough pull-ups, And these guys that are actually better at pull-ups than I am, if they're suck at running, by the time we get to the pull-up bars, wherever that is, up to like half a mile from wherever you started,
Yeah.
you're gonna be a little bit smoky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to see what an average day step count is for a cone.
Oh,
I
Like
actually
it's
dude, I wondered that myself, because when I went back to my mind in the apprentice course, I was at the old schoolhouse. Like I didn't get to go through the new schoolhouse. The old schoolhouse was on the other side of basic Kirtland. And we parked in this one parking lot that you could actually, I mean, it was like catty corner to the schoolhouse. You could see it. But in true cadre fashion, they were like, yeah, but you're not allowed to go that way. You're not allowed to go the way that's a half a block. You have to run this specific route up and around and back down. And it ended up to be like 3/4 of a mile or something,
Yep.
right? So it was like, that was every single morning. We parked in that parking lot because it was right outside the dorms. So and nobody was staying in those dorms, by the way. They were all staying at different places. So everybody meets in this parking lot. You'd form up and then you'd run a mile to school before you did your pull-ups to go in. That was just every single day. And then if you wanted to go to lunch, you have to run that 3/4 of a mile, get to your car, go, like, first of all, do your outs, run your 3/4 of a mile, get to your car, go to lunch, eat, come back, run the 3/4 back to the schoolhouse, do your ins, and then be back for class. Like, that's just lunch.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
people out there right now are like, how far did you run today? We're like, oh, I ran, 2 miles. It was pretty good. And I did some pretty good pull-ups. I ended up getting like 40 or 50 really good pull-ups in. Be like, oh, tight. I did that at lunch today because I forgot something in my car.
yeah. So,
You know?
so the one thing that I don't think that we've ever covered this. We've mentioned it, but I don't think we've ever explained what ins and outs are.
Oh shit. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
so ins and outs,
Yeah.
and everybody does them different. Like whether it's PJ Schoolhouse, Combat Control Schoolhouse, SWIC, whatever. But usually there are before you can go into the building, or before you can go out of the building, or out of the training
It's like the
area.
training area, right?
Yeah. So you have to, and maybe it changes from week to week or month to month or whatever like that, or individual. Like if somebody, I know that if your weakness is pull ups,
Mhm.
because you've barely passed or maybe you've failed kind of an eval kind of thing, right? Then they'll say, okay, you have to do push ups, you have to do pull ups, and everybody else is doing whatever. But
Mhm.
there's a certain amount, and it's not a crazy amount. Like, right? I think it used to be, hey, you got to do 10 pull-ups before you can
It's
go in the
yeah. So it's 10
in the
plus 3, right? So it's always you're doing 10 pull-ups, but you're doing fallen comrades, ST,
teamwork.
teamwork, right? Like those are the three. So you're always doing 10 plus 3 at everything you do. I think push-ups was 50 plus 3. And then like we used to do dips as well. So those were
Yeah.
the three exercises that you would do is push-ups, sit-ups, or I'm sorry, push-ups, pull-ups, and dips were the three that you would rotate. And it would be like odd day, even day, Friday, I think was the way that we did it. And it would change every once in a while. They'd
Mm-hmm.
be like, hey, for these next 2 weeks, you're not doing dips, you're doing flutter kicks. I want 54 count flutter kicks for your ends. But yep, just like Peaches is saying, when you get to your training area, so for instance, at Kirtland, the new schoolhouse, it's about a half-mile run from the dorms over to the new schoolhouse. So you form it up, you look good, you sing loud, you run, you say the creed before you go. The plaque with the pararescue creed is right out front of the schoolhouse. Loud and proud, you sign off on that bad boy, and then there's a little student entrance. It's got pull-up bars and dip bars, and that's the next thing you do is you walk right around the corner, you do your ins to your training day, and then if you're going to leave that training area, then you have to do your outs, and it's the same thing.
Yep.
So ins and outs, and that's
Yeah.
by the way, you want to watch your pull-up numbers
Oh
skyrocket.
man.
Have a room in your house, like make it a bathroom, right? So or your room or whatever room it is that you want, hang a pull-up bar. Every time I break this doorway, I'm going to do, I'm going to start with 5 pull-ups, but those are my ins and outs for this room. You'd be shocked how fast your pull-up numbers go up. Even dumb stuff like, push-ups. Hey, every time I leave the house today, I'm going to do, 50. I'm just going to do as many push-ups as I can. Good form push-ups until I can't do it anymore. You do that for like 2 weeks and watch
Oh
how
man.
fast you improve.
Yeah. I
But
can't
that's
believe
why we
when
do ins and outs.
yeah.
Just free volume.
Yeah, absolutely.
um Trent, this is probably an MFM kind of question, but just numbers wise, but from Stay After It, what special warfare career fields are in the most demand, and why so few cross trainee slots available?
I mean, they're all in demand. Nobody's hitting their numbers.
Right.
So I mean, we kind of go around the four the four big career fields in SWOE. Like, hey, like we're not seeing as many people talking about combat control, or we're not seeing as many people talking about TAC-P or SR, and like so like the recruiters are always chasing the whatever's not coming in the front door. All the career fields always have space available for everybody, and there's never enough qualified people to do all the work, right? So, or all the things that everybody wants us to do, and in at the squadrons around the world and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say cross training, if we're talking Air Force to Air Force, that's really a kind of a misnomer that the slots aren't available. If you put in a package and you're a qualified candidate, and I've already filled my retraining slots for the year, I will take the non-prior service slots, and it's just a call up to like half A1, and I can flip those slots to bring in more retrainees. But also, it's based on how many people I have in certain ranks at different times in their careers, and the holes that I'm trying to fill. So if the rank you are at the time you are, and I've already filled all those holes, if all those things don't line up, it's not a matter of slots as much as it is a matter of I don't need what you're bringing to the table today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I know it's frustrating. I can see that there's probably a good amount of pain or frustration behind this question, because this is actually a question that it is a frequently asked question, and it's frustrating, right? Because you're doing X job, whatever it is. Maybe you're in services, or you're security forces, or a maintainer, or whatever it is, and we always say, regret is hell if you're sitting here like figuring out whether you should go in or not, and you're just him hawing, and then all of a sudden, one, you could rank yourself out of it, because we typically aren't taking tech sergeants, or if you're a staff sergeant with a line number for promotion, like we're probably not going to take you either. So it's staff sergeant and down, and maybe you find out that you want to cross train, that you have something's changed in your life, and you're like, hey, I want to do this, and now we're limited on cross training slots and stuff like that, and you're like, like that sucks.
Well, the big thing on this is don't take the first no as the only no. Like, oh, I looked it up online. And on my FSS, it says that you guys only have 5 retraining slots per year for SR. So, like, should I even bother? It's like, man, I can create as many slots as I need if I have
It's
the
not real. It's like
qualified
fiat
trainer.
currency. I can just make them up. They're
Yeah.
just enough. We do it every year when we talk about our recruiting numbers. We change numbers and then we say that our recruiting isn't as bad as it is because we changed a number somewhere. We can just change whatever we want.
Yeah. I can make this happen. So,
Yep.
if you keep going and you find, the people you need to talk to and all these other things, and your what is the career field, the career development, what are those people called that are supposed to help people out at like the
Oh yeah,
FSS?
yeah. I know which.
Career advisors or
Yeah,
I know what you're talking
CCAs
about.
or CAAs or
Career
something like
Yeah,
that.
assistance advisor or something.
that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
CAAs.
Yeah, talk to those folks, and not all of them are going to know all the right answers either. And if they're not willing to look anything up, then find another one. And then
Right.
you have the internet, which is crazy because
Yeah.
there's a,
And
a
I will
bunch.
tell you, I guarantee this answer lives on Reddit or it lives on the Discord or it lives on some message board somewhere because people go through this and they frequently talk about it. So it's always
Yep.
a funny thing that people have to get used to in the military. And usually cross training is kind of like the first time. Young airmen don't really have the experience of the no kidding just getting dicked down by bureaucracy of these things. You walk into somebody's office, typically cross training is like the first time that these kids will walk into an office and they go back to their supervisor and be like, that guy didn't know anything. It was like the first time he'd ever looked that up. And your supervisor's like, yeah, you have to go in there and you have to know more than them about your problem before you go talk to them. Like sometimes you have to guide them through it. And they're like, no shit, really? Like, yeah,
Dude,
yeah.
I experienced that showing up to
Everywhere.
the 2-2.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because as soon as you put on a rank, right, everybody assumes that you've had it on for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
It's like, no, dude, I put this on yesterday, actually. Like
Right.
that was literally what happened. No, I just put this on
I
yesterday.
just literally, yeah, I've been a chief for about 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love when somebody comes in and they're like, hey, can you help me with this problem? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And then they describe the problem and I'm like, cool. And I open up a tab on my computer and I start typing. They're like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, I'm Googling this. I have no idea. Like, this is the first time I'm juggling flaming chainsaws. I have no idea how to help you with this problem. Like, we gotta figure this out together, homie.
Mhm.
I do want to say that when I saw this question, it made me think of a different sort of topic. The question that we get about, I don't think I'm ready for this job right now. I want to get into the Air Force and then do another job and then cross train. This is sort of the reason why I do not recommend that at all for a number of different reasons. And I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole here, but man, when you say that you're just going to assume that you're going to cross train later, you don't know if the Air Force is going to turn off cross training in the next 2 years. Like wacky changes happen all the time. Like you're making a decision for the next 6 years of your life, really, because it's going to take you a year to get into the Air Force. It's going to take you a year to get through basic tech training and get to your first duty station. And then from there, you have to spend at least another year to get into your window if you're a 6-year enlistee, right? Like, or 4 or 6-year enlistee. So, with all that being said, you are going to, when you say, oh, I'm just going to do a different job to get this thing, you just signed up for 4 to 6 years of your life before you do what you really want to do. And that's with the assumption that the cross training process is still going to be there or still going to operate the way that it is now. Like
Mhm.
all of these rules can change in a heartbeat. I mean, go back. I can't remember when they eliminated dive school, but even I famously, not famously, mildly famously, I'm like, there's fucking no, for a million reasons. It's too fast. Trent and I had a really long talk about this, and then we're immediately proved wrong. But, things that you think are solid and things that you think are just always going to be part of this whole thing, man, that's not true. Like you're just assuming a whole lot of things and you're betting 6 years of your life. So as far as cross training is concerned, like that should never be your primary plan, at
Mhm.
least in my opinion. If you want to be a PJ, go be a PJ. Don't go be a security forces guy for 4 years and think that that's somehow helping you being a PJ. You're just spending 4 years doing a job that's your second choice, right? So, for the whole cross training thing, that's kind of the reasoning behind why I'm never going to tell people what to do. Like I can't possibly give you advice on what to do with 6 years of your life. Like that's way outside of my lane. But just to give you some context there, like that is not the best or most efficient way to go about it, in my opinion. I don't know
Yeah.
how you guys
The
feel about it.
my only alibi to that is if you're in a bad situation
And you just got to get out.
and
Yeah.
you just
Like,
gotta get removed
hey,
from that
man.
situation,
Yep.
which I know a couple people that did that and they went into something that and they were never interested in aspect war anyway, but they were interested in other stuff. But those slots weren't available at the time, but they were just, I mean, in a really bad situation. It's like, okay, yeah, that makes total sense. But for
Or
the
yeah, or
for the
maybe it's
majority, nah.
yeah, and maybe you just maybe it's super righteous. Maybe you want to serve so bad that you don't care. You just want to get in and start like getting that military experience because you care and you know that's a goal down the line.
Yep.
Cool, I'll hear it. But for a all of those things, not those crazy sort of index cases aside, man, saying that you're going to get in and go cross train, there's way too many unknowns. I would feel super super unsure about that plan just because of the unknowns. But
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to communicate to somebody without being a dick, right? Like, why? Because my answer to that is always like, well, why would you do a job that you don't really want to do just to do a job that you want to do? Would it be more efficient just to wait an extra 6 months and do the job you want to do, as opposed to wait 4 years doing another job that you don't know if they're going to let you cross train out of? Like, it always sounds like me being a dick and condescending, but it's sort of the baseline question that you have to ask yourself.
Yep.
Well, and typically, if you go in the first time and you don't make it, coming back the second time, odds are way more in your favor. You've seen behind
Yeah,
the curtain. You probably have friends that were in the pipeline with you that made it, and so you have like an amazing resource of folks to talk to. You know what to expect now. You've been in the environment and you've been in the military for a little bit, so you're not coming in cold. So it's a little bit easier for the folks that come through the second time. It's not easy.
yeah.
It's going to be a giant kick in the
In the
nuts anyway.
balls and the ovaries. Yeah, balls. You're not allowed to say balls. Indoc balls too. You're not allowed to say that. Which is funny. I will say though, I do want to give credit. I can't pull it up right now because I answered too many DMs on the page. Somebody had a really good argument for this. I still don't agree with it personally. But I'll tell you what. Like, the young man sounded like he had a good plan. He was like, "Hey, here's what I want to do. I want to get in, then I want to cross train." We had a good conversation. I was like, "Hey, I don't think that's right. I don't think you should do that." He's like, "Well, here's the deal. I do sort of want to be an Intel guy. So I want to go do and see the Intel thing, because then if I decide to cross train and I fail out because it's a high attrition rate, I go back to Intel and I go back to something that I do want to do. As opposed to, if I go in right now into SWOE and I fail, then there's no way that I'm going to get Intel. Like, the spots just aren't there for me to pick up going out of the pipeline." He was like, "It's really hard to get." He's like, "I'd be much more," he's like, "Wouldn't I just be like way more likely to get security forces or maintenance?" And I was like, dude did his homework. Like, I can't fault the argument. You know what I mean? I still disagree with it, but it was actually the most level-headed argument for doing it that I had heard. I was pretty impressed by it. I told him so. I was like, "Hey, it sounds like you've got a good plan. I disagree with the plan. I wouldn't do it like that. But if you want to serve, if there's an Intel spot that you want to go and immediately get in the Air Force and do this job and then cross train over, if you do that the right way and it works out, man, more power to you.
Yeah.
Like, good for you. But just for the rank and file for everybody, there's no way that I could say, oh yeah, that's a good idea, because there's just, like I said, too many variables."
All right. I'm gonna blast through these real quick. Your wife is mid. Wow, that's an awesome.
Tight.
SR deployments look like in GWAT. Well, I wouldn't
Post
stick
GWAT, yeah.
that with, or post GWAT. I would not stick that with just SR. That is all aspect war.
It's the
You're-
DoD. What does
yeah.
the military look like post GWAT? What do we look like now? Like, what, man, things are changing super rapidly.
We're already evolving,
Yeah.
and we're changing based off of what we are forecasting and what we think the future might look like. But then, you got things in Europe and the Middle East that keep pulling us back in. So, who knows? But you're going to be busy, that's for sure. Old Morgan Houston, aspect war history. Who's your favorite aspect war historian?
There's only one.
I mean,
Morgan, what are you talking? Like, is there a competition? Is there somebody else that we need to shame? Like, we're Morgan Houston fans here.
Tell me you love me.
We do love you. It's Morgan 100% of the time. Go check out the Discord. Morgan runs around in there. You'll see him as Whiskey Mo. He does great talks in there. His aspect war history is intense. I think we did like 3 hours with him. He's amazing.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Bob. Bob. What are some of the key differences in the pipeline for cross trainees? I think we kind of already covered that.
I think he's asking, like, hey, what are the expectations for a cross trainee as opposed to somebody in SWO? Like, the processes are completely different. That can't possibly be the
Well,
context of the question.
in terms of being expectation wise, you better be more mature, better be able to lead, and you better also be able to train. When you see somebody who is, a brand new dude out of basic training that shows up and they've whatever, whether it's got an attitude, their hygiene is off, their decorum is off, or whatever it is, you better be able to point that person out, provide them feedback, and teach them and train them to,
I mean,
whatever it is, act appropriately.
Yeah.
your job is just a mid-level supervisor, just like it is
Yeah.
in the Air Force. Like
Mhm.
we're all on the same team. The cadre and the team, they're all on the same team. Your job is at certain times to try to protect the folks below you, and at certain times try to accelerate the intent from above you, right? Like and make sure everything's happening the way it should be. It's not rocket surgery.
Yeah.
It's not. We do need. This is a do out for everybody. I'm going to put it on wax. We owe a cross training episode. We're trying to find the right person that can walk us through the cross training episode and spell it out. But we'll include this. This is a good question.
Yeah.
We'll deep dive it.
Next one, Sawyer Mud Laugh. Is there any cool artifact objects you guys have brought home from the job? So I am not going to self-incriminate
Oh, I'll
by
start.
because we don't do war trophies.
No, you're not allowed. And you're not allowed to have morale trophies either. We were talking about that with Kyle Pettit and the 105
Yeah.
rounds and how people get up. I got some really cool stuff from the job, like alcoholism and unresolved anger issues. I got a little bit of traumas that I'm dealing with. Those are really cool. And the cool thing about those is I get to keep them, my entire life. And those are mine. For those of you playing the home game, you don't ever have to give those back. You know what I mean? They didn't even make me turn them back in when I out process. They're like, cool, that's awesome. Did you make sure to leave all of your working joints and any semblance of mental health that you had? And I was like, yeah. Those are here. And they're like, okay, great. Have a good life. Those are
Trent's
the
just
only
going
artifacts
right
I
back
got
to
there.
his. Have we released that rant?
Bro. Yeah, I
Have
think
we released the rant episode yet?
The Bro Vets episode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we already release it?
Yeah, it's members
Okay.
only right now.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Not ours, not your individual rant and my individual rant, just Trent's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll put that out on members, but
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, so in seriousness, no, the career field did not do that to me. No. Ugh. Stupid things.
No, but
no,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
we have things, right? I don't have an ISIS flag or anything like that from when we killed people, or smoked the enemy, or
Right.
I don't have 105 shells that were fired in in anger at people that they died. I don't have anything like that.
I certainly
that
don't
wouldn't be
have.
appropriate.
No, absolutely not. I certainly don't have, any signs from places that I thought were cool that may have been in foreign countries that I thought would look good in a team room or, maybe up on a wall somewhere. I definitely don't have any of those things. I definitely don't have, maybe stuff from other teams that you maybe procured. I will say there's a really fun thing that Pararescue does as part of our history. Speaking about stealing things and stealing artifacts, I got yelled at on my first rescue because I was hoisted down to a ship to get a sailor. We button him up, hoist him back up. We fly him back, right? I was a young PJ. And literally when I landed, the guys that came, we landed at Lake and Heath. I was working at Mildenhall, but the guys that came out to recover the bird, one of them was a Jay, like he's taking all the stuff out because, the 57th was up the street, or the 56th, whatever that rescue unit was up the street from the 321st. So when those dudes came out, like, yeah, we're still PJs, but like, I didn't even know like the guy that came out. I was too new, but he's looking around at all the gear and he's like, hey, where's the life preserver? And I was like, what? And he's like, where's the life preserver? You went down to the ship. You're supposed to steal a life preserver and then bring it back up with you as tradition. And I was like, what? And then no kidding, in their team room everywhere. Like, this is the first time I was made aware that that's a tradition. But when PJs go on ships, typically you take one of their little circle life preservers and you put that in your team room.
I kind of like that.
Well, and and it kind of reminded me, I wanted to tell that story because we're talking about like taking artifacts and taking stuff like that. If you go to a heritage room, like if you walk into the halls of any ST unit, any rescue, like there's heritage room and there's stuff everywhere on the walls and it's stuff from all over the world. I'm going to tell you a little secret. 95% of that shit is stolen. That's not, those are not gifts.
What?
The teams, if there's a plaque from like another school, the team's gotten to a fight with somebody and stole that plaque and ran away with it. Like, I'm just going to tell you straight up, like whatever, somebody somewhere is like, we used to have very nice plaque. It had bomb on it. Where did plaque go? The PJs must have taken plaque. Like, that's an actual thing. Apparently we worked with Russians at one point. Anyway, That's the artifact say, but it's usually we call that tactically procuring gear. Okay, so have I ever tactically procured gear from downrange and brought it home? Absolutely not. That would be illegal.
Nope, not
Yeah,
doing it.
not doing it.
Timmy Bacon, Timmy. Um, what matters most for getting your package approved when applying for retraining? So this is what you were talking about. This is the question you were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll continue on with what I think is grammatical errors, spelling errors, making sure that, you don't have some terrible scan where it's kind of like half, it's not really scanned well and that kind of stuff. Um, those are some of the big, like, keep it simple. Also putting the application and the package into one document. Now that's me. I like having a one-stop shop for a document instead of 19 different attachments, and I can't figure out which one is open. That's me. But Trent, you dealt with this a lot more than I did.
I was gonna say Trent is just teed up for that. He's so
Yeah,
mad already. It's residual madness.
you could see
No,
it.
it's I think the current guidance is to put everything into a single document. But like I just say, guys, like if you have an iPhone, or I don't even know if you can do it on Android, download something like Scanner Pro app onto your phone. It makes things super easy. You can just take pictures and it comes through just like you scanned it on a computer. You can put them all in order. You can combine them into a PDF and then you just upload it because there's a whole bunch of paperwork that you got to put in there. And yeah, it's our first look at how much you care about this process.
That's it. And it seems like the dumbest thing, guys and girls. I understand. It seems so stupid, and it's a way to manipulate cadre. Like I'm telling you the cheat code right now. When you're in these MFM positions, you get so mad at the smallest things that people cannot figure out because it takes up your time. You have way too many things during the day to spend extra time on bullshit. So when you see something that's wrong, like I can tell you from experience, looking at all these packets or I ranking, quarterly awards, I would look at something. And if a quarterly award was written poorly, like wasn't filled in correctly, whatever, immediately I'm like, I'm not even looking at this one. Let me look at a better one first and then go from there. So if you want to manipulate your cadre, and in this case for your, SWOE packet or for your cross training packet or whatever, put everything in order. Everything is spelled correctly. It's one document where you can look and the guy's just like tick, tick, tick. Cause just like Trent said, the person reading that is going to look at that and go, oh, holy shit, they care, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And this person put everything in order. All the attachments are numbered correctly. And I can just look through it immediately. I like you more, right? I hate you. I take it back. I hate you a little bit less when I see a packet that's constructed like that.
I mean, yeah, it's like it's your essay. It's like, well, when I was 3 years old, I'm like, oh,
There I was living in my car, right? And you're just like, oh, you were so close, dude. And it's back to a normal level of hate for cones.
All right. So last question, and this is a repeat. So you had Yosef Jujitsu and Dizzy Dave 3.0, and they basically are asking about Indoc 2.0. And it's a
okay.
rumor. Is it true? What's it look like? And that kind of stuff. So unless you two want to dive into it, I would say wait for an episode because we are going to record it. We are just waiting for the final stamp of approval so that we don't, because the whole thing is not about being first with information. It's about being accurate and correct. And the one thing that we don't want to do is just rush out there. Like we know what it looks like right now. It just doesn't have the stamp of approval. So as soon as we get that, we will release the episode. And I've got to say it, and this is the last thing I'll say on it is whether it's Indoc 1.0 or original Indoc, it's SWIC, ANS, or Indoc 2.0 or whatever name they put on it. Does it really matter?
No. That answer is no. Listen, we change courses all the time. Like calling it Indoc 2.0 is some funny thing. Like, oh, we're taking it back. It's going to be Indoc 2.0. Guys, you're not helping anybody. You're actually hurting the process down there from everything we're getting from those. Like Indoc has taken on kind of like the word itself harkens back to a time that people aren't really very appreciative of, right? Like if you want to think about Indoc was hot and heavy, that was a time period that people want to move on, and there are certain personalities that want to move on for that time period, and they have their own motivations that I'm not here to talk about them. Bottom line, yeah, we know what the course is going to look like. Yes, we've heard that. We actually talk to the people that are making the course. We understand what the standards are. We'll get it out to you when we can, but it's this weird thing. No matter how no matter how many times people refuse to let us help them, we still have this innate desire to protect them and not burn them down in public. So out of the goodness of our own hearts, that's why you don't have an Indoc 2.0 episode. It's coming. It's coming, I promise. And the second that we are allowed to tell you about it, or that we feel that we're not burning relationships by telling you about it, we will tell you about it. But that's the line that we're walking right now. Shout out to Jake. What's up, buddy?
I think I covered it. Yeah.
All right.
There you go. Indoc
right.
2.0. We probably have to cut that last part out. I don't give a shit.
I'm not cutting it out. No way.
Just saying
You're
hi
not-
to our friends. Our friends.
We're just
that
saying
is.
hi to our friends. I don't know. We had a couple of DMs. I thought we were going to text more afterwards. It just didn't happen. So I guess we'll just talk to each other later, I guess, you know?
All right. Well, everybody, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave us a review, check out the merch site, onesready.com, then check out the partners that we listed beforehand to get yourself some, training plans, 18 Alpha Fitness, Hoist for hydration, Cardomax for caffeine, coffee. You can hit up Trench. And then I think that's all of them, right?
Get those
Yeah.
beans while you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Germans ruin everything again.
Damn, them Germans. Dang.
All right. Later.
Late.
Later, fellas.